I have been thinking about this for a very, very long time. I understand this won't reach a whole lot of people. And then I'm going to end it with a quote from Rod Serling. It's very interesting what he says. It's towards the end. You can go ahead and click right ahead through it if you want to and see what he says. But everything that he says, he realized it was going to happen 40 some years ago, or I guess now it's probably almost 70 some years ago. All right, let's get into this. Now, if you don't know who this person is, this is Sophie Winkleman from the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship.
Social media is described as a great connecting force, and it can be a wonderful thing. But when we stop noticing people in our immediate surroundings in favor of the swirling masses online,
Yep.
I don't think of it in quite such a warm, fuzzy glow. Whether it's my young couple from the bus, teens alone in their bedrooms glued to hours of futile or dangerous rubbish, parents scrolling on their phones while their babies try in vain to catch their eye.
And this is what made me want to talk about this sort of situation, this sort of topic. It's been juggling in my head for a while, and just the experience that I had the other night when I was out at a restaurant, and it was a mother and daughter. The mother she was on her phone and her daughter was on her iPad. I don't know the age of her daughter. It doesn't really matter. The waitress brought over a large glass of chocolate milk for her daughter, and she sat glued to her screen, swiping some sort of gotcha game is the only thing that I can imagine. But the disconnect between the two of them was absolutely unreal. When I look at my family, it's absolutely crazy to me to ever think that I would ever sit across from them at a table and not look at them or listen to them or hear what they have to say. And I saw this and it absolutely broke my heart, because I was like, they really don't know what they're doing to each other. And look, in fairness, maybe I don't either. I can't see the future. I don't know what that daughter's future, what her daughter's future is going to look like. And I think that enough people smarter than me have also speculated on it.
Or toddlers given Siri voice companions in nurseries. None of these newly acquired habits seem to bode well for our collective spiritual flourishing. The disintegration of adult society and the loneliness of our elderly population is bleak enough. But the digital destruction of childhood is a crisis we must face if we're to have an alliance of remotely functioning citizens, let alone responsible ones. I first became interested in the topic of screens and children a few years ago when I was made patron of the education charity School Home Support. I visited schools up and down the country, and too often I saw children distracted in classrooms, yet silent in playgrounds. Screens were taking their attention away from their teachers during lessons and away from each other during break time. I also observed
And schools are enforcing and reinforcing this behavior. And I can understand from the perspective of someone thinking that it's in the best interest of the children, because that's where society is heading. So we must follow society. Unfortunately, there has always been a handful of people that have stood against society to change it for the better.
children in general becoming a different species.
And that's what it takes.
The raucous exuberance of youth was being replaced with an anxious, irritable insularity, which was disturbing to see. From a personal point of view, I know that if I'd had devices in and out of the classroom, I would have bombed academically.
Absolutely.
I'd have been constantly distracted, thrilled by all the garbage available online. I wouldn't have read any books, and I'd have got up to goodness knows what on my various machines.
You might have been really good at making TikTok videos and potentially having a career there, I suppose. But I don't think that people that consume TikTok would actually be very good at making TikTok videos.
Our household landline was quite derailing enough. Looking back, I cherish the very analog form of education that I received and the very human connection with my beloved teachers. It's been one of the greatest gifts of my life, and I want all children to be able to focus, to acquire knowledge, and to achieve their maximum potential.
We knew children respond to facial features and different emoting from their parents, and kids being stuck on their screens. I see it all the time. I see kids like 6-10 months, the moment that they're able to hold a device, that they get the device in their hands, and that's it. That's the end of it. be quiet. We're in a restaurant. Here's the device so you can be quiet. I'll make you quiet. And what they don't realize is that when you try to not have the device there, that the kid will become irritable and anxious and cranky and be even worse.
I think that should be every civilized society's aim. But the evidence shows that we have already...
The ease in which we have them available to us is far too easy. And it's too easy to do things in a certain way. Give them a device because it's easier. Give them shoes without shoelaces because it's easier. Just get up out of bed and go to school wearing your pajamas because it's easier. Not everything has to be easier. There should be some challenges in life. You should face some sort of hardship.
Already put this gravely at risk. We left the doors to our children's classrooms, their bedrooms, and their minds wide open to the world. Perhaps we thought we were giving children the right to access everything which might be good out there, but instead we've given everyone else, the good and the bad, access to our children.
Yes.
Let's consider some facts and figures. As illustrated in Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, the great rewiring of childhood is causing a plague of mental illness in our children. In the decade...
I believe it's something like 50% increase for young girls over the age of 13, and I think it's 28 for men. Something like that.
Up to 2020, the suicide rate for younger teens increased by 167% among girls and 91% among boys.
Insane.
Hospital admissions for children with eating disorders in the UK have risen sixfold in a decade, the contagious influence of social media cited as a major factor.
And this is what I've been saying previously, or what I had said previously was, I always thought it was the cell phone, and in reality, it's not the cell phone, it's actually social media. That's the problem. Don't let your kids watch unsupervised content. I wouldn't let them watch YouTube at all, to be honest. Even the cartoons and everything that they might watch on television, even unfettered access to things like Disney Plus. We used to have commercials growing up when we watched cartoons, and that would break our attention, and we would end up going outside to play because it's like, well, I'm just stupid. I don't want to watch this commercial. When you have streaming services like Disney Plus, where it's a non-stop feed of the same cartoon over and over and over again, some of the stuff is fine for kids to watch, but I don't think they should be just left unfettered to watch 2 to 3 hours of these sort of cartoons. I don't think it's good. I think it's hardwiring and rewiring their brains. So I don't think it's only social media. I also think that it's other content, I guess if you want to put it that way, that they consume.
And 2022 saw a 500% increase of self-harming among teens over the past 9 years.
Crazy.
In a British study last year, researchers found that 1 in 3 children are now short-sighted. Myopia is predicted to affect nearly 1 billion children around the world by 2050. Too much screen time is the culprit, with blue light harming developing eyes, not to mention interfering with children's hormones and their sleep rhythms. Spending time outside can be preventative for myopia, yet screens suck children indoors more than in any previous generation. Recently, the technology regulator Ofcom reported that 1/4 of British children under the age of 7 have a smartphone.
Under the age of 7? Wow. Like she said, I can only imagine the stupid stuff I would have done if I had a smartphone under the age of 7. Holy cow. I don't necessarily know anything about that blue light stuff. It's very possible. But it is definitely... We'll get into the news article that covers this sort of behavior and potentially could have something to do with blue light.
Increasing to 97% of 12-year-olds. This mass buy-in to smartphones is resulting in a lost and deeply damaged childhood, with screen addiction displacing nearly every wholesome activity you can think of. As Douglas Gentile puts it, time spent on screens is time not spent elsewhere.
True. Absolutely 100% true. I know when I go to any of the playgrounds around here, or I pass by a playground, I don't see any kids. And it's very possible that, people just aren't having kids anymore, but I know there's kids around. I just don't see them at the playgrounds anymore. I don't see them outside playing. I'm hoping more people start waking up to this kind of madness of giving your kid a screen all the time.
A healthy childhood should involve lots of free fun. Drawing, running, reading, writing stories, make-believe, kicking a football around, even just staring out of the window and wondering. These are all halcyon images in a sepia tint because they scarcely happen anymore.
Yep.
Health professionals for safer screens recently issued guidance that 11 to 17-year-olds should have no more than 1 to 2 hours screen time per day. This includes everything: iPads, school laptops, smartphones. It's all just screen time to the brain. And yet, children aged 8 to 18 are on average spending 7.5 hours per day on screens.
Holy cow. 1 to 2 hours at any screen. When I think back to my childhood, I think I probably spent less than an hour a day looking at, like, watching television. For some reason, and I know some friends of mine will attest to this, for whatever reason, I knew then, nobody told me. I never, my mom used to sit me down in front of Sesame Street every morning and watch television, and I always watched it. For whatever reason, I had this belief as a kid that this stuff is bad for you, and I don't know why that was.
Outside of school hours. Out and about, the reality is starkly visible. The number of toddlers subdued by screens on public transport when they'd be perfectly happy looking at the strangers around them, the dogs on leads, the opening and closing doors, is, to my mind, tragic.
Yes, and it is to keep the kids quiet because parents don't know how to keep their kids quiet. They don't know how to talk to their kids. Same restaurant the other night, there was a woman with 3 or 4 kids, and she had a small little baby. And the baby was probably 6 to 8 months old, I would say, able to sit up, so maybe close to a year. And she had her phone in front of the kid because she had her hands full with the other 3.
This unthinking crossover from the analog to the digital is resulting in heavily impaired speech, cognitive development, and emotional regulation. How will children so constantly but artificially stimulated ever learn to think, imagine, create, or just be still?
Some people will say that this is by design. I don't necessarily think it's by design. I think it's a product of circumstance. I think people are just taking advantage of this sort of effect on kids. I don't think it's by design. All right, so I wanted to get into the article, and this one is from BBC Science Focus. This was this year. It was just done at the end of February. I'm a neuroscientist. Here's the surprising truth about TikTok brain rot. A recent study suggests binging short-form videos is bad for your gray matter. Again, I will take everything the BBC ever says ever again with a very, very, very large grain of salt. There's a scary implication. There was a new study published by a large team of brain scientists in Tianjin Normal University in China. What did the study find? They scanned brains of more than 100 undergrad students. They scanned the brains of more than 100 undergrad students and had them complete a questionnaire about their habits of watching short online videos. The survey included statements like, "My life would feel empty without short videos." "Not being able to watch short videos would be as painful as losing a friend," with having participants indicate how much they agreed or disagreed. Intriguingly, researchers found that those who felt the most attached to short videos had noticeable differences in their brain structure. These participants had more gray matter in their orbital frontal cortex, a region near the front of the brain involved in decision-making and emotional regulation. Similarly, they had more gray matter in the cerebellum, a small cauliflower-shaped structure at the back of the brain that plays a role in movement and emotions. The team concluded that this was bad news for the lovers of TikTok, as having an oversized OFC, that's the orbital frontal cortex, could be a sign of what they described as heightened sensitivity to the rewards and stimuli associated with short video content, which basically means a form of ADHD. They speculated that watching too many TikTok videos might have led to this neural bloating. Well, if they scam these people that mostly agreed with those statements, and the people that they scanned had more gray matter, then it is definitely a correlation. Obviously, there could be other things, but if they scanned everybody and the people that were more agreeable to watching, that would equate TikTok to losing a loved one and not being able to watch it, if those people had larger or more gray matter in their OFC, then that would conclude that the correlation is there. Similarly, they suggested that a beefed up cerebellum might actually help the brain process short video content more efficiently. Again, we don't even need to, we're doing the evolution on our own. We're basically making our brains watch short video content. So the brain is like, well, wait a minute, I have to evolve to be able to watch this more efficiently. So it's doing that. Possibly a result of frequent binge watching. This could also reinforce the cycle. And again, I've seen this as Sophia was talking about. When you introduce a child to these sorts of things, short form video content, stuff like that, it will start to reinforce their own need to watch them until they are probably weaned off, and it potentially may never be able to be reversed. But that's not all. The team also performed a second brain scan, tracking participants' brain activity while they rested with their eyes closed. They found a greater synchronization of activity within multiple areas of the brain. This included the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, a region involved in self-control, the posterior cingulate cortex, an area involved in thinking about yourself, and the thalamus, a kind of relay station for the brain signals, and the cerebellum. That is a tongue twister, researchers suggested. These functional brain differences could reflect a range of problems among the more addicted participants. So people that were more addicted probably had worse outcomes in the brain scan. Issues included trouble disengaging from videos and a tendency for excessive social comparison while watching them. Yes, there are the psychos that watch YouTube videos or short video content and overreact to something somebody might say. Oh my God, it's raining outside. What, you don't believe in climate change? That's their immediate thought process, right? And maybe it is watching this kind of stuff is what's wiring them to think that way. Because I think swiping is like rolling, it's like pulling slot machines. What's the next one? Is this one going to make me laugh? Is this one going to make me laugh? Is this one going to make me laugh? I think that's, and we are hardwired, I think, from a long time ago to gamble. Like I think people can be predisposed to having an addiction to gambling, and I think those are probably the types of people that feel this way. Does TikTok cause brain rot? If you're an avid consumer of fun online videos, or maybe a concerned parent, take the bloody phone away from your children if they're spending a lot of time watching TikTok. Crazy to me. It is crazy to me. And I know people will say, oh, you're just an old man and, yell at some clouds. Go outside and yell at some clouds or something.
Who's laughing now? Shut up.
Don't understand, man. You don't understand. And look, maybe I don't understand either. And it's nearly 20 years since the Atlantic magazine ran a cover feature that asked, is Google making us stupid? And the claimed answer in a nutshell was, well, yes, it is. Of course, these earlier scares were before the advent of TikTok. Perhaps there is something uniquely damaging about the kind of short, scrollable, nonsensical content available today. It is just a faster, more addictive version of what we had before. And it is just causing people to stare and stare and stare relentlessly. And like Sophie had said before, that it could be the blue light. It could be the blue light that is actually causing the increase in the amount of gray matter. To the best of my knowledge, he says, there isn't any good science to support the idea that short videos are specifically or uniquely bad in terms of the effects on the brain. Okay, now what did the study get wrong? Let's take a look at some of the limitations of the study. If the goal were to prove that watching TikTok harms the brain, again, that's a bit of a nebulous sort of statement. A more effective approach would be to scan participants' brain before and after they consumed different amounts of the supposedly harmful content. That's true. However, this study was entirely cross-sectional, meaning it only captured a single snapshot in time. There was no before and after comparisons to show cause and effect. No, but because these people wouldn't have walked in 10 years ago and done a study before TikTok was invented. So it's hard to see, but if the people that are more addicted to TikTok have more brain matter, or they are more admittedly addicted to TikTok or short form video content, and their gray matter in their brain is higher, that would equal a correlation, or if not a causation. Or as Etchell puts it from this study, you can't say anything about whether watching short videos causes changes in the brain, or whether certain types of brain structure precede certain types of video consumption. Again, we got to make the excuse that no, it's really not damaging. So it's okay. Keep watching, guys. And look, BBC Science Focus, we're on TikTok too. So make sure to subscribe or like or whatever the hell you do over on TikTok. First, the researchers searched the entire brain for any differences that correlated with scores on the video addiction scale. This approach is a common issue in brain imaging to research because it increases the risk of finding false positives. In other words, the more comparisons you make, the more likely you are to stumble upon random differences. Okay. Second, even if we accept that the observed brain differences are real and caused by watching TikTok, I don't think it's directly from TikTok. I think it is from probably staring at your phone. I've said this already. Interpreting them involves a great deal of speculation. The researchers framed increased synchronization in the brain, known as regional homogeneity, as being a negative effect. However, ReHo itself is neither inherently good nor bad. In fact, other studies have linked. See, I don't. No, I'm not falling in for that sort of thing. This other study here says this is smoking. Like we had 4 out of 5 scientists back in the day said smoking is good for you, and the one other scientist or whatever was a smoked menthol. We're not playing this game, and I think it is. And I think TikTok is the epitome of something that Rod Serling has said in an interview a long time ago. And I'll get to that in a second. But it is the lowest common denominator for entertainment possible. And that's, again, that's not to say that I was smart back then. I was an idiot then, and I'm still an idiot now. If you listen to what Rod Serling had said, this was in 1960, maybe something like that. Let's see what he has to say.
I doubt if television really will ever change. I think basically we're fighting a losing battle.
Right. So he's talking about television. I think it equates to the content that people consume today.
Those of us who keep claiming that it's an art form. Indeed, it can be an art form. Indeed, on odd occasions, it is an art form. But I suppose principally, basically, fundamentally, it's a commercial medium designed as a display case to push products.
Nails it. All the short form content, all of this stuff is exactly the same thing as he says here. It is to push products.
And so long as it fits into that mold and performs that function, the key approach that's going to be taken, and the most basic approach, is get as many people to watch as you can and program down to that level, that arithmetical level. And as long as you program down to that level, you're not going to get properly balanced programming. You're going to get only those shows which appeal to the greatest number. And as in the history of art, since for 2,000 years, beyond Sophocles, beyond all of them, you're going to get mass entertainment, which by its nature can be titillating and funny and cute and frothy and light, which will not survive its 1/2 hour on the air. Nobody's going to be talking about that 100 years from now.
Like as Rod Serling says there, it's a medium to sell products. And I think like I said before, it's the addiction to it is just a byproduct of showing people the lowest common denominator of entertainment. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video, maybe learned something. I know I learned some things after watching some of the ARC videos. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.